Okay, I think I'm live, so if you can hear me, go ahead and pop a hello in the chat if you can see that on YouTube, and we're just gonna give it a couple minutes before we get started here. So this is the first time I've done a live in a while. The last one I did was a Patreon one, maybe like 6 months or a year ago. I can't really remember exactly when it was, but it was so bad. I had so many things go wrong. The orientation was the wrong way when I got started, and I had to like start a new live because I couldn't change the orientation of the video. So then I had to scramble and run over to Patreon and update the link. And then very shortly after that, my screen limit popped up and it kicked me out of the app. And so that was another fiasco. And then to top it all off, I just like lost audio at one point. So it's taken me a lot of a lot of time to have the courage to do a live painting again. Some of you know I used to do live classes for Michael's quite a bit. And I was never nervous doing those ones, but I think just because there was a moderator for some reason, it made me feel better. But anyways, so let's jump into this one. Thank you so much for joining, whether you're watching live or watching the replay. So we are going to be doing this simple little autumn landscape painting. It's definitely not a super complex painting. I really like this one because I kind of wanted to focus on a beautiful palette. So it's gonna be a lot of color mixing. And I also just wanted to do a painting with some depth. So something that just felt like, you know, you kind of can see far into the painting. It doesn't feel one-dimensional. So it's a simple one. It's actually based off of this painting here, sort of, which was, this is here about maybe 5 or 10 minutes away from my house, the Bosque. So we're gonna do the fall version of it. So to get started, I'm using just like a Blackwing Pearl pencil, but if you have a lighter pencil, like an F pencil, feel free to use that one. And if you're watching on Patreon, go ahead and click the video, whether you're on your phone or your computer. It should be fine, but if you click on it, it should take you over to YouTube, and then you can use the chat if you want to. Definitely no pressure there, but all right, let's get started. So I'm gonna start about halfway up, maybe just a little under halfway up, and let's draw a little path about halfway, and let's curve it and come over here. So kind of like a nice S shape here, backwards S shape. And then just underneath it, let's do the same thing. Also, I was very hopeful today that my kids would be asleep during this. Neither of them are asleep. My son Raphael is just babbling away in his crib, and thankfully Dan is able to watch on the baby. She's kind of like getting right past that wakeful, or right past the sleepy newborn stage, and she's a lot more wakeful these days, which is fun, but also another challenge. So over here, I'm gonna draw right kind of in this little pocket here. Let's just draw some tree branches, maybe like 4 of them, 5 of them. Don't worry about any kind of shapes or anything at this point. And then over here on this side, we'll do the same thing. So we'll do 1 here. Keep your hand relaxed. Don't make your lines too straight. We want these to be a little bit, you know, uneven. So maybe I'll do like 4. And now I actually will do a little bit of shape here for the trees. So let's see here. Let's go up about this high. And let's just kind of draw almost like you're drawing the shape of clouds. Okay, and these ones, I'm gonna make these ones a little bit lower here, and then they kind of go up here. Do it however you want, it's gonna look great. But just make sure they're kind of inconsistent. So you know what I mean when I say they kind of look like clouds. All right. Okay, just taking inventory here, making sure I like the composition. I think it feels very nice. Okay, so I'm going to use my larger brush here. So this is like a size 8, I think. I'm gonna get it wet. And I think I'll go ahead and start with the sky. I think I'll kind of start at the top and work my way down. And I am gonna use a little bit of Payne's Gray. Use whatever blue you have. This might actually be indigo, but it's very, very similar to Payne's Gray. I kind of switch between them quite a bit. I can't remember what I squeezed onto this palette last, so. Okay, I'm just gonna do wet on dry. Just go ahead and drop that blue into the sky. Grab a little bit of water. I want that to move a little bit more smoothly. And I'm getting over a cold still. It's been a while, and I also have allergies today. So if I have to cough and sneeze, I apologize. I was really hoping I'd be over it at this point, but it's taking a while. Okay, so I'm gonna smooth out that texture there. All right, now I'm going to grab, so with the trees here, a trick I kind of want you to keep in mind is we don't want to just use one yellow, or we don't want to just use one orange. We really want there to be a beautiful kind of spectrum of colors here. So that's going to be kind of my MO in this painting, is just lots of color. So I'm going to start with some lemon yellow, and I'm just going to kind of pop it in there. I'm not even really trying to cover all of the white either. I want there to be little spots where the white kind of pops through. So dashes is kind of the name of the game for this one. Add a little more water, a little more lemon yellow. And just do maybe about that much. I think that feels pretty good. My goodness, we're having a crazy week over here. We're doing potty training with Raphael. We've been doing it the last 3 days, so we're in that mode. I just drove my grandma to her eye doctor appointment. It's been a crazy day, but I've been really looking forward to this class. There's something about painting live that I think is just so much fun. I haven't done it in such a long time, like I said, so it's fun to get back into it. Okay, so let's grab a different yellow. Let's do some yellow ochre, my favorite shade of yellow. And let's go ahead and just drop it down here at the bottom. You can let it be a little scratchy, or you can make it smooth and watery. The thing about painting a live class is that I don't have a bunch of time to do wet on wet. If I pre-record a class, it's a lot easier, but wet on wet requires a lot more drying time. So whenever I'm painting live, it always makes the most sense to just wet on dry, whatever's gonna dry the quickest. And actually, I'll go ahead and drop it on this path right here. Go ahead and bring it all the way, keeping this back part of the path light. I don't want to cover that quite yet. Actually, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a little bit of that lemon yellow. No, I'm just going to drop a little bit of that lemon yellow back there on that path. Okay. So let's take a little bit more of that yellow ochre, and let's do that same dabbing technique in the trees here. One second. I'm just going to make sure that everything looks good on the Patreon end of things right now. I think we are good. Okay. Keep moving. Okay, so yellow ochre, just dabbing it into these trees here. Let me close this window next to me. We're in like the part of the street where everybody has like 5 dogs. So if one person is walking, it sounds crazy out here. Okay. So now I'm going to grab a little bit of Naples yellow. Use whatever yellows you have. You don't have to use the exact same shades. It's still going to turn out awesome. But I really want there to be a nice mixture of like oranges and yellows and greens, even almost like some pink shades in the trees. So we just want there to be like a nice mixture. I love how that blue and the yellow kind of bled into each other up here. I love those kinds of details. I was going to use masking tape today, but I actually ended up just using a rubber band, and I'm just painting in my sketchbook. And this actually works really well. I've never done that before, but I like that technique. It's kind of cool. Okay, so kind of squinting at it. I'm gonna grab some olive green, and let's drop some olive green here. So there's kind of like this area right here. Kind of think along this top line here. I want that to be a little bit of a darker area. Like we're able to see like kind of back into the forest just a little bit. So just kind of think about that, like adding some depth kind of right along this sort of center line there. You can add a little bit of that darker Payne's gray. Maybe mix it together with olive green or whatever green you're using. You can even just mix a regular blue with the regular green, whatever you have. I add some green over here on this left side. Maybe add a little bit of yellow to it. Just add a little bit of that yellow ochre. I've painted this painting over the last few days. I just painted it maybe like 4 times or so. So I'm a little bit like, I definitely feel pretty comfortable with this composition. But I will say it doesn't always turn out the same. Some versions I liked a lot more than others. I really would encourage you, if you enjoy this at all today, to keep playing with landscape paintings. Like find a composition that you like and then try it a few times. Try a few different passes at it. That's kind of been my method. Okay, so I'm going to drop a little bit more yellow down here. Just kind of drop that color while my brush is wet. Okay, I'm going to go back to the trees. I kind of move around. You'll probably notice here that's my method, is to kind of bounce around, but I'll try and be really clear about what I'm doing. So right now I'm just dropping a little bit of what is this called? Olive green. Up there in the trees. I want these to be trees that look like they're just kind of in the midst of changing over. Our trees over here in the bosque where we live were so amazing and orange. It's been like the most amazing slow autumn. Like it was just, leaves were changing very slowly. And then we had our first frost the other day and it just kind of obliterated them. So now everything's a little more brown. All right, dropping that darker color, layering it in there. Needs a little bit more blue. I love that mixture of like warm and cool. So seeing those warm greens that are mixing with the yellows and then adding that blue, that adds a lot of interest and kind of complexity to a very simple painting. Just little details like that. So just adding the blue and into that mixture. Okay, I'm gonna add it up here to this tree a bit. Okay, let's add another color to the mix here. I'm going to add a little bit of burnt sienna. It's a little out of frame. It's a little bit of burnt sienna. Excuse me. If you don't have burnt sienna, you can use a little bit of red. Just use whatever kind of warm, earthy color you have. Excuse me. Okay, so I'm just going to drop this orange shade up here. Not as heavily as I did the yellow. Just kind of here and there. Maybe you could even mix it with one of your yellow shades so you get kind of a more toned down version of that orange. We just want there to be a lot of color in this. I'm gonna drink some water real quick. Okay. Like right up here. Love how that feels. Up in here, just in these little trees down here. And just kind of sprinkle it around. I like using a larger brush for this part because using a small brush I get way too fussy about details, but I will use a smaller brush in a little while. Okay. I am seeing I want a little bit more yellow, like true yellow. So I'm going to take some Naples yellow and dab that in there as well. So let's come back down to this ground area. So I am going to mix some green, some olive green with some yellow ochre. And I'm gonna just kind of dab this color in here and go ahead and just grab spots where it's just pure yellow, and I want you to just grab some green and just drop pure green as well. I want there to be a nice mix. We don't want this to feel like it's just one color, one color. We want there to be that nice variety. It's a little bit of a maybe more impressionistic. Obviously this is not like a photorealistic version of a landscape painting, but super fun to paint in this way. Okay, so drop some darker green, maybe just like some grasses right here just along the edge of this path. So just kind of using the point of your brush right there. You can grab a little bit more blue in there as well. So we have the warm and we mix in a little bit of that dark cool color. And then let's do, my son is just babbling away right now. Not even a little bit tired. Poor kid. I'm so worried that we're leaving the nap phase. I get a lot done during his nap, so I don't want that part of his life to be over yet. Okay, so let's grab a little bit of an orange color, or maybe even some pink. Let's do some, I'm going to grab some, just whatever pink or red color you have. Cadmium red, alizarin crimson, Windsor red. And just drop a little bit of red in there. Let's just drop some little flowers here, maybe even over here, just in a couple tiny spots. I'm gonna grab more of my green mixture here and drop it in here, maybe for some stems, some grasses. And remember, just kind of keep trying to mix that color, mix the color up. So don't just use one color. You know, use one color for just like a few seconds and then switch it up. Add a little bit more green to your mix, or maybe add a little more blue, or add a little bit of yellow. That variety is just, it adds a lot. I'm gonna come right up to that path line. Some of these grasses, if you feel confident, they can just kind of peek out over that path a little bit. Switching that color up. You can make some flowers growing over that path. Try not to get too, I'm personally trying not to get too detailed. Right here, I do want this to be kind of a neutral space, but I don't want it to feel like there's no detail, if that makes sense. So I'm just trying not to overdo it too much, because I do want the focal point, or I want the eye to kind of land over here a bit more. Okay. Adding a little bit of water. If you feel like you went too detailed, you can always just grab a little bit of water and just smooth out some of those details a little bit. That's what I'm doing right now, just a little bit. I'm gonna add a bit more of my olive green over here to the left side. Okay. I do want to add a bit more green underneath these trees over here, using that kind of dashy technique. I don't want to fully cover any area, because I always want it to look like there's maybe some dappled light coming through the trees. So I just never want to fully cover the white of the paper or the yellow underneath the green. Such a fun style of painting. I love it. Okay, so I'm gonna grab now some of my Payne's Gray, and I'm gonna use this Payne's Gray. And this is the scariest part of the painting, okay? But we're gonna drop this blue color to be like a really dark shadow into these trees. So just kind of do these like little dashy lines. If you want to, if you feel nervous, you can do a more diluted version of your blue and then slowly kind of work up. But just draw some like, yeah, kind of like dashes or lines. I want it to be a little more shady in there, okay? But I'm also I'm trying not to cover everything. You don't have to do it perfectly. It's just for the impression of it. There is no perfect way to do it, just so you know. Okay. And now I want to make my path a little bit darker as well. So I'm going to use just a little bit of that blue, same color, and just layer it here on this path. So it's a very light version of that blue, not as dark, because the path is lighter. So it kind of makes sense that it would be a lighter kind of version of that blue. If it feels a little too blue, you can grab a little bit more of the yellow ochre and drop it in there. Okay, I'm kind of just squinting at it. I'm gonna grab a little bit more yellow ochre. Drop it there. I'm coming to about right there. I don't want to fully cover it over here because I'm imagining this spot is a little more sunny. I'm gonna grab a little bit more olive green and drop this really pigmented, concentrated pigment here just along that line. I want it to kind of bleed into that path a little bit. I want it to feel a little bit watery. I want it to feel like a painting. I want it to feel kind of that impressionistic watercolor feel. Okay. We're getting close. A few more fun details before we get to the trees. I'm gonna drop a little bit more green back here in that foresty area back there. Add a little bit of blue. And I'm going to actually do another detail here. I'm gonna grab a little bit more lemon yellow. Over here, this looks so light to me that I'm just gonna drop a little bit more yellow on that back path. Watercolor always dries so light, you never know how many layers an area might need. But I love the layering aspect of watercolor. I think it's so fun. Okay, so I'm gonna grab a little bit of yellow ochre, a little bit of olive green, darkening just along that kind of horizon line there. And don't worry about like leaving space for the trunks. The trunks, we're gonna paint them real dark just over all of the details. But we do want it to dry a good amount before we do that. Okay, I'm gonna grab a little bit more green and layer this right here while this is drying, just in a couple spots, not overdoing this bottom area. Maybe over here, just a few more details. Okay, so this is also probably a great opportunity to maybe switch to a smaller brush. So I'm going to grab, I think this is a size 2 brush. Use whatever size you want. I've used this brush so many times that I can't even read what size it is anymore, but it's probably a 2. So now I'm going to go up here in these trees. And now it's time for some of those smaller details. Just using the tip of that brush, kind of a scratchy dry brush technique. So a dry brush just means it kind of gives you that scratchy texture. So there's not a lot of water in my bristles right now. And I want you to just drop some of this green up here in these branches. Maybe you want to drop more yellow. I want you to think about your painting specifically and think about what you would like to see a little bit more of. Would you like to see a little bit more orange, a little more blue? The green, adding it in there, or even if you wanted to add some blue up in there, that is going to help give your trees a lot of depth. You don't want it to be all dark. You want there to be a nice mix. Oh my gosh, he's banging his crib against the wall. Try and wrap up quickly for his sake. Okay, so I'm gonna grab a little bit more Naples yellow. Drop that up there, right along that blue sky line. I might even drop a little bit more lemon yellow. Okay, I think it's time for branches. So if your painting feels like it's at a reasonably dry place, then do this with me. If you feel like this is still super watery in here, just give it a couple more minutes, or you can grab a blow dryer. That will help to get it all dry, but you don't want to do this too quickly. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of burnt sienna, and I will mix the burnt sienna with Payne's Gray. And that's gonna give me a nice rich brown color. When you mix two opposite colors, which orange and blue are opposites, it's gonna give you a pretty nice neutral color. And I'm leaning more heavily on the burnt sienna side, which is gonna make it more brown. So let's go ahead and just draw some stems here. Start at the bottom or start at the top, kind of creating that Y shape. And what I'm gonna do is just look for a few spots that are kind of light in those trees to just kind of draw these sort of lost and found little lines. So I'm not trying to show every branch, every detail, but I do want there to be just these little peeking branches that are just kind of peeking out inside those leaves there. I love drawing the branches. It feels, in the stems, it feels like it really brings this painting to life. I'll grab a bit more. Okay, and let's go over to this right side. Do the same thing. So kind of doing this Y shape. Some branches peeking out in the trees up here. Do a nice thick one here. Make sure you're kind of messing with the, or you're varying the thickness of these trunks. You don't want them to all feel the exact same. And then we'll do one right next to it. And one over here. Okay, I'm gonna squint at my painting, decide where I might want to add more branches up in these trees. The higher you go, just remember you want to keep them very faint, these lines. You want them to be very thin when you have like little twiggy branches up in these trees, up in those leaves. So just in a few more spots over here. Okay. I'm gonna add a bit more as I'm just kind of taking inventory here. I'll add a little bit more green up in here, just in a few more spots. Those final details are usually what kind of just, I don't know what's the term I want to use here, but it just kind of makes it feel really complete when I take the time to get those last details. It really is like the cherry on top. Add a few more grasses down here, just using olive green. Add a bit more olive green to this shadowy area. Another thing you could do to add just a little bit more drama here at the end is you can add some more of that Payne's gray to your burnt sienna mixture. Add an even darker layer just in a few spots to your branches. Don't want to make them all super dark, but just adding maybe a little bit of definition in a few spots. I feel like I need one more tree back there. I think a mistake I kind of made with mine is I felt like these all felt too similar of a horizon line, if that makes sense. So I kind of want to make some of these stems go just a little further down, because I don't want them to look like they're all just planted right next to each other, if that makes sense. So So that actually feels like a pretty good stopping point. If you want to, you can definitely take more time, really add in some of these little tiny details. Just using that small brush, you can make this as detailed as you possibly could want. Trees, I've painted some tree commissions in my day, and they can be exhausting if you really try and get all those details in there. Sometimes it's better to do a more impressionistic version of a tree, in my opinion, and kind of just go for color. You know, go for color and go for shape, and you're gonna have an awesome looking composition. So I hope you guys enjoyed. This one was so much fun to create for you, so much fun to just, I don't know, do something a little bit more fall inspired. So I would love to see what you create from this. I'm sure it looks beautiful. So go ahead and send me a message and show me what you created, or send me an email. And I will see you next time. Let me know if you enjoy this live class, because I'd definitely be down to do some more live classes in the future if you guys enjoy them. So I guess that's all for today. So I will see you next time. Have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.